This is Dr. Mariah White, host of Your Life Matters. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello. Welcome and thank you for joining the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. We are your hosts, Jenna and Candace Gomez. Jenna is a military spouse of 10 years, a mom, a registered and certified dental assistant, and a certified phlebotomist. And Candace is an active duty military member of 17 years, a military spouse of 13 years, a mom, and a student. Again, we just want to say thank you for being here with us today. As always, we highly encourage you to share our podcast. Also, we definitely appreciate any and all feedback. So if you would like to leave us some feedback, please feel free to email us at confessionsofamilspouse@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram at confessionsofamilspouse or at publichousemedia.org. So Candace and I talk quite frequently throughout the week, and we're always talking about different podcast ideas and things that we want to talk about on our podcast. And last week, it just kind of hit me as I was sitting there meal prepping for what felt like 27 years. That there are things that I do differently when my husband is gone, either for deployment or training or anything like that, than I do whenever he's home. And I'm not sure if it's because I have the comfort of him being home and knowing that he can kind of pick up the slack that I can't get to when he's here, or if I just want to feel like I'm really prepared while he's gone. I'm not really sure. But when I was doing that, it made me realize that I do things differently when he's gone. So we thought that would be a good topic to talk about, things that you can do while your spouse is gone to help make your life easier, things that, from Candace's perspective that she appreciates while she's gone, and different things like that. So let's go ahead and jump on in.
I call what you're going through, Jenna, I call that survival.
Yes, that's very true. Very, very true. It was just so interesting that, it just hit me one day that I was like, man, I do not sit here on a Sunday night and cut up Ella's vegetables and fruits and my vegetables and fruits like this when Dustin's home. And then, usually every morning we're scrambling, like, are you making Ella's lunch? Am I making Ella's lunch? Like, what's happening here? And so it was one of those things that I realized, like, meal prepping like that or getting things prepared as much as I can throughout the week really helps me while he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, well, right now, Rosie, she eats at school. It's free. Well, sometimes she eats at school. She comes home, we're like, what'd you have for lunch? She's like, oh, carrots. I'm like, okay, you have to eat more than that. But this week, so we're making her take her lunch this week. So, but she does it. We have her do it, honestly. But we're both here to kind of manage that. But it is pretty hectic. I think for me, my mornings are more hectic than any other time when he's not here. I think that's probably true both ways. Just because in the morning we're trying to get ourselves ready, get our food together, get our lunch, our water, whatever we need throughout the day. And then we have a soon-to-be 3-year-old. She turns 3 actually in 2 days. So she's got a lot of work. She needs a lot of help, right? So we're helping her get ready, like still brush her teeth and, make sure she takes a vitamin. She needs help to get in the chair and, all that kind of stuff. So we're doing that. So I think my morning is way more hectic when I'm by myself for sure than evenings.
Yes, I would definitely agree. Well, and I feel like I kind of like to reserve the evening time for more of that downtime because, I've worked a long day. Ella's had a long day at school. Another thing that I notice that I do now while he's gone, and if he listens to this episode, he's going to be like, who is this lady? Like, she is not my wife. Like, so maybe I shouldn't be saying this because he's going to come back and expect it. No, but one of the other things that I realize that I do is that I try to cook whatever meal I'm having the night before. So,
Yeah.
like, Sunday night, I try to cook Monday's meal, and then Monday, I try to cook Tuesday. So then that way, when that day comes around, I'm usually only having to reheat or make the sides for that meal. And for whatever reason, for me, that seems like it works so much better than rushing home and having to cook an entire meal by just reheating the main meal that I have already prepared.
Yeah, so I do a lot of without meal prepping essentially when he's gone. Of course, this depends on how long he's gone for. So since we've been on the East Coast, my husband's only been gone. I think the longest was maybe 30 days. It was probably less than that. I feel like I've been gone for 30 days. I know I've been gone for 30 days at a time since we've been here, but I feel like he's been gone for like maybe a week or two, maybe a little bit longer. And so one of the things we've done here, and I only use this for short time frames, is like at the grocery store or at Sam's, they sell like ready cooked meals that you can reheat and you just make others like you make the sides with it. So like one of the girls' favorite meals to eat is one of those ready side dishes and it's like beef and gravy and then they like to have it on the egg noodles and it just makes my night super easy. I give them a side of fruit or vegetables and then all I have to do is heat it and it heats in the microwave, which is like my favorite thing and
Oh, yes.
it doesn't taste gross though. We found some we're not fans of just because the kind of meat it is or whatever, but yeah, that's what I use. Like when he's gone, I use that for sure. Longer periods of time though, I don't know. Like you, I go into survival mode, like what you're talking about, like cooking as
Yes.
much as I can. And my lunch the next
Yes.
day is often leftovers from dinner that night. So I cook a little bit extra for lunch, like that's on purpose. Yeah, I don't know. I think we talked
Yep.
about this a little in the introduction too, where like you just got to find that thing to that like alleviates some of your stress, like for us it was
Yes.
pizza. I think you said for you guys it was like going to Subway one night where you just knew you didn't have to worry about cooking and it was like a done thing and it was easy. Like for us it was pizza. We'd walk down the street to the pizza place and we'd order a slice of pizza and a beer and then well I'd order a beer. My daughter obviously not, but
Well, she might. Okay, she
uh
might need it too.
I mean, real talk, I kind of wish sometimes, I'm like, sleep through the night, will you please? But yeah, no, so those things, I don't know, just make that time frame a little bit different or
They
easier.
really do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, we've continued, now that Dustin is gone right now, we've continued to Friday nights is our mommy daughter night. Ella loves it. She looks forward to it. She knows that she pretty much gets to pick what we do. She gets to pick where we eat, if we watch a movie, if we play Nintendo Switch, if we play a board game. And it's something that she looks forward to, but I also look forward to it because I don't have to put any thought and effort into any of it. And I know that probably sounds terrible, but anybody who's gone through a training or a deployment or anything like that totally understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I like when Rosie gets to pick stuff like that because I'm like, oh, it's so much easier. The other day, she came home with a really good report card. We were really pleased with the work she's done and improving specifically in one area. And so I was like, you get to pick dinner tonight. And she was like, that's easy. And so she picked, and we were like, oh, thank God I don't have to worry about it tonight.
Right? And it seems so small and so like minimal, but when you're literally deciding 7 days a week what somebody is going to have for dinner and lunch and breakfast and everything in between, like that one meal not having to pick is literally so relieving.
Yeah,
And I don't even care what it is. Like,
no, it really is. It really is. You know what's crazy
she,
is I have never done anything really extreme while he's been deployed or gone from home. What I mean is like um I've seen stories of spouses who will lose like 100 pounds while their spouse is deployed, and they're like an entirely different person when they come home. that's it's incredible. I don't like I don't know how I would even go about doing something as
Right.
significant as that when they're gone. I'm in full survival mode. Like, how am I going to make it from this weekend to next weekend for the next 6 months?
Right.
And I see people's stories of they're like, I lost 100 pounds. My husband didn't even recognize me when he came home. I was had to like walk up to him and like reintroduce myself. I'm like, that's crazy.
Right? It is. It's amazing, but it's also so crazy because, like you said, it really, for me too, it is just survival mode. And some days it's literally like day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, sometimes even second to second. And there are some days I just count down the time until bedtime.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
And
100%.
people make so much fun of me because they know if it's after 8 o'clock at night, the chances of you getting a hold of me are very, very slim. And they laugh at me, but I'm like, that is the only thing that keeps me sane
Yeah. Yes. And
because I get to go to bed and I don't have to worry about anything anymore.
yeah, I like the, after I get the girls in bed part because I just get a few minutes like by myself, and then if he's busy, I'm like really by myself. It's like a small little break of just breathing time. It's
Yes.
pretty I like it. I think when he's gone, I tend to pick up things like reading, and then he comes home and he's like, "You're reading? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, what the hell else am I supposed to do with my time after they go
Right?
to bed?" Like,
I needed something else to occupy my time, okay?
yeah, I'm like, I got bored with TV. The book, I mean, else did you want me to do? Like,
My options are limited here,
yeah,
okay?
yeah. I'm like, oh, just go with it. It's just a book.
Right? Well,
Uh,
and I think my biggest piece of advice for most spouses when they're going through like a deployment or a training is to give yourself that break. Because I know I've
yeah,
heard from a lot of spouses that after they put their kid to bed, that's when they get all their stuff done. And obviously, it's different for everybody, especially if you have younger kids, older kids, things like that. But my biggest thing was allowing myself to leave the dishes piled in the sink and to leave the clean dishes in the dishwasher and whatever else needed to be done, to just leave it and to take that little bit of time to myself and let myself decompress. Because the minute that I don't do that is the minute that everything just piles up and the overwhelming feeling sets in. And then it feels like you can't ever accomplish anything.
yeah. Like you're never done.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I feel like isn't really talked about, and I don't know if it's like a real thing or if it's something that like I put on myself. The last time Dustin was deployed, um, care packages were,
Mhm.
I feel like that's such a big thing. And everybody talks about, oh, sending these care packages while your significant other is gone. And I remember there were times like I would go to the store and I would buy this stuff and I would just sit there and look at it because again, I was in survival mode and I couldn't keep my house clean. How was I going to find the time to sit down and cutely decorate a box and put all this stuff in it and take it to the post office and, get the customs form and all of that and send it out?
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me was so overwhelming. And I imagine that if I feel like that other people probably feel like that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine one of the things I used to do um when he would deploy was I would just get a box and then I would leave it. I would like tape open. Oh my goodness. I would tape the bottom. Welcome to my week. Jeez. I would tape the bottom and then just leave it open. And as I was shopping or I was somewhere and I'd be like, I want to send that. I would just buy it and then I'd just throw it in the box. And then when the box was full, then I would close it up and be like, okay, in like the next 2 days, I'm gonna purposefully make a trip to the post office to send it, right? But that was like, oh God, I feel like we're so old sometimes. We were talking about like going to the post office. Like people do that. I mean, I do that still, but I know a lot of people who own their own businesses and stuff, and they say they like ship and mail for like directly from home. So like
That's
nowadays,
me. I'm
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not there yet, but no, I think that that's also another good option too. I think so. If you could figure that out, more power to you because I don't have it yet. But I'd be using the crap out of that if he were gone for, if he needed care packages, which I'm very thankful that we have not. I think we're coming into that here pretty soon because I'll be changing units, but I think we're very lucky right now that we don't have to deal with that again. And we have not had to deal with an extended amount of time. Oh, when I say extended, to me, over 30 days has a different significance to me. I think that's just my military mindset. So if that doesn't mean if 2 weeks is a long time for you, 2 weeks is a long time. You know what I'm saying?
No, I would
Yeah.
definitely agree. And I sometimes think that when they're gone for the shorter trainings, like the 2 weeks or like the month, sometimes I feel like that's almost harder than them being gone for a long period of time because it's like they leave and then you get adjusted and then boom, they're back.
Yeah, I have a
And then you
harder
have to.
time with shorter periods too.
Yes. I mean, honestly, and I hate to say that, and not that I would ever wish that Dustin would go away for a really long time, but he and I have had that conversation because before his last deployment, when they were doing workups all the time, he'd be gone for a month and then home for a month and then gone
Yeah,
for a month and then home for, and it's so disruptive.
workups
And
are the worst.
oh my gosh, they really are. And, obviously there's nothing anybody can do about it, but it's part of the territory and it's something that you have to deal with. And for us being able to have that open conversation and say, hey, like, no offense, but it's really disruptive when you come and go.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and it's nothing to do with you. Just know, like, it's a struggle for everybody. And I know it was a struggle for him as well.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I do want to go back to care packages because I've been thinking of a lot about this, and so I do want to go back to that. But I'm gonna be honest with everyone, and a lot of people won't admit this, and I think it's just because a lot of people can't compare the two things. So maybe this is just my experience, but I'm gonna be totally honest. Being deployed is easier. I honestly think being the deployed one is easier than being the one at home. And and so, mind you, I'm a logistician by trade, so I'm not a infantryman. That's not what I do. So I'm not going to pretend like I understand that on deployment. I mean, I do a little bit, right? Because I'm a Marine, so we practice those things.
Right.
But I'm not at that level where it's what I do 24/7, right? I'm a logistician by trade, so I don't go out in the far forward. We're on, a forward operating base, which is usually a little larger, a little bit more secure. Um, so I won't pretend that I know what that is like, although I have had my Marines there and I've been to those places for a short amount of time. I haven't spent a whole deployment like that. But I'm gonna just be totally honest. I think being the one deployed is so much easier than being the one at home. It's so much
I'm
harder
I'm
when you're
so
home.
glad that you brought that up though, because that is a conversation or maybe a disagreement or argument, I don't really know, that Dustin and I literally have all the time.
Yeah,
And it's one of those like he's like, "Well, you don't know what I'm doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't know what I'm doing."
yeah. I mean,
And
I think they're both hard, right? So I don't want to
yes.
devalue either because they're hard. They are both hard in their own right. I'm saying for me, if I had to choose,
Right.
I love my children and my spouse, but it's easier for me to be the one who's gone than to be the one who's home.
Yeah, I could completely see that. And do you think that it's easy easier to be gone? Well, I mean, obviously because you don't have a spouse, you don't have kids, but do you think because of what you're doing when you're gone that it helps keep your mind off of those things?
Um, yeah, but I think it's more because when you're gone, you're the one who's away. You're literally focused on you and what you're doing. So I don't have 80 meals to make for the week. I just have to walk to the I mean, yeah, but I just walk to the chow hall and eat, and then I leave, and then I don't have to worry about, telling my 2-year-old, sit down, stop moving, don't throw your napkin on the floor. Where's your napkin? Wipe your mouth. Don't, you can't do that at the table. Okay, that's enough water for now. You need to eat something. Like, I'm not having that conversation 80 times. I'm just putting my own food in my own mouth, throwing it away, throwing my trash away, and then leaving. It's just it's simpler. Those things, all of those things feel simpler. So it just makes it I think it makes it a little bit easier for me.
Well, that's understandable. And just so our listeners know, Candace and I had a little bit of a conversation before we hopped on, and I'm going to kind of jump back to that conversation because it ties in really well with this. So, one of the things that Dustin and I both hate is laundry. Oh my gosh. I'm not really sure, other than my mother, I've ever met someone who actually likes laundry.
Mm.
But Dustin refuses to do it, and that's fine. But when he's gone for an extended period of time and he comes home, I'm like, bro, can you just help me out? Like, for the last however long, every single week, I've done it all by myself. Can you just like hang the clothes up or something? And it kills me because it never fails. I'm always having a bad day when he decides to tell me, oh, the people lost my laundry again. Part of me is like, damn, that really sucks. But then the other part of me is like, you have someone to do your laundry? Like,
We kind of depends on where you are, but I'm for real. Laundry undeployment sucks so bad.
and this
Oh,
was the conversation that we were having before we hopped on.
listen, if you use bulk laundry, which is what Dustin's using in the field, they go to a
Yes.
bulk laundry facility, and so maybe he's lucky that his laundry gets put into one of the non-industrial washers. But y'all, our clothes get washed in an industrial washing machine, which means my dirty clothes are mixed with other people's dirty clothes that I may or may not know. And then they're all washed in the same dirty, black, and disgusting water.
It's so true. It's so
And
true.
the clothes are clean because the water is now brown instead of black. And all y'all's clothes smell disgusting. So
Period. End of story.
it's just gross. That's one of the things I did want to talk. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but that is one of the things I wanted to say. One of the things that I do when my husband is deployed for an extended amount of time is I tell him, listen, do not bring home the underwear, socks, or skivvy shirts, green, brown, whatever color your spouse wears. Don't bring it home. And then when he gets home, I have over time bought him all new stuff because that stuff just gets so worn out and disgusting that I just, over the deployment, purchase new ones, wash them with regular laundry when I do it, and then I put it in the drawer. And I say, hey, don't pack that stuff. Don't bring it home. Keep an extra pair in case, I don't know, you get stuck in an airport somewhere, which does happen. And when you're packing out for the final time, throw that stuff away and don't bring it home. And so I try to stock the drawers at home with clean underwear, clean socks, and clean new shirts and stuff like that because oh, I know what comes out of those laundry washing
Right.
machines, and I almost sometimes I'm like, please lose my laundry so I can have an excuse to buy new stuff.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's a really great idea and something like I personally would have never thought about, but it's definitely something that I will start implementing because I mean, there have been so many times Dustin has told me like, "Yeah, I got my laundry back and doesn't even look clean." Like
No, oh, it's not.
and then I think about the fact that okay, like if they're over in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever and it's really really hot and
Mhm.
then, they have 7 to 9 months or however long it is that they're over there and it's in the hundreds every single day. You have to have your sleeves down. You're just profusely sweating.
Yep.
And then your laundry is getting thrown into these nasty industrial washers and
Yeah.
dryers. Like it cannot be clean. It just can't.
It's not. It's not. And if your spouse is just my recommendation, a tip for you guys is if your spouse is a female service member, I have two sets of bras. I have at home bras that I wear on my normal. I'm at home. I use my own washing machine, my own shower, both sports bras and regular type bras. And then I have a deployed slash field set, which are a little bit different. They're a little different supportive wise, but I have two different sets of bras to take with me.
That's
Just
really smart though.
yeah. And then maybe a little TMI, but one of the things I've learned over the years for female service members is so you don't have to do laundry as often and don't have to change your undergarments as often. And I know that sounds really gross, but one of the things I always pack now is panty liners. So use a panty liner every day instead of being skin contact to your underwear. It's just a little more hygienic.
See, and this is like amazing things that people like myself I would have never thought about because I've never been in that situation.
Oh, it's taken me years to master that. So, you
It's
know,
just like, don't get it wrong. Like,
oh, I mean, I wasn't doing this off the bat, it's taken me a long time to really do that, but it's just through talking with other service members. And so I'm saying these things because if your service member spouse is deployed or whatnot or getting ready to go, these are just things you can send or things you can prepare to send with them. Um, it might help. I don't know. Just putting it
no,
out there.
I think it's great. Because I personally am always looking for, I guess, like non-conventional items to send to Dustin when he's deployed because,
Hmm.
he's like, I've got access to wherever I can buy whatever food I want. And like, he's such the type of person that he never craves anything.
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, you can't send me any chocolate because it'll melt, or you can't send me this because it'll do that. And that's against the regulation. So I'm the type of person that I'm always looking for things like that and helpful things that he will actually use. Because I
Yeah.
also think about the fact that everything I send, if it's like not edible or whatever, it has to come back with him as well.
Yeah. Or he's got to store it somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think about that. And I know one of the things that I sent him almost all the time was deodorant because I don't know if he ate it while he was over there or what. But I think every time I sent a box, he was like, "Oh, I need more deodorant. Oh, I need more deodorant." And I'm like, "I swear to God, I just sent it to you like 2 weeks ago. What are you doing?"
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, hygiene products are always good. The USO ships hygiene products to deployed troops all the time, which is fantastic. And there's a lot of different services that send that kind of stuff. But yeah, service members always need socks. It's so strange, but they do. You just walk through your socks, literally walk holes into your socks. Um, shaving cream, deodorant, soap, that kind of stuff. Yeah, of course, dependent on where the service member is at, right? So if
Right.
they're, living in the dirt, they don't have a whole lot of use for um, soap, but socks certainly, for sure. That's so funny.
Absolutely. Well, I can only imagine, like, we're talking about the laundry situation. I can only imagine what the shower situation is like.
Yeah. One of the things, sorry, I'm just, my brain is like all over with this stuff because there's so much, but because we're saying, right, like you don't want to send stuff that they can't eventually get rid of or aren't going to like eat. So one of the ways I used to, and actually this started with my mom, when I was deployed, my mom would decorate my boxes. And so I'm sure you can Pinterest, like, care packages, and there's some pretty intense stuff going on there, like things I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Yes.
But what my mom used to do is go to the dollar store and she would buy stickers for $1 and then she would put them all over the outside of the box. And it was just something that was different and funny sometimes. And maybe she would theme them, maybe not, doesn't matter. I mean, one time I think she sent me a box with princess stickers all over it. I mean, but everybody just kind of got a smile out of it and a little giggle, and so it just kind of brightened everybody up. But I didn't have to store it anywhere. I didn't feel bad for getting rid of it because she was doing it just because she wanted to
Right.
and to make everybody kind of smile. And so I did it a couple times with my husband when he was deployed. Um, so
please
for
tell me you
them,
please tell me you put princess stickers on this package.
I think one time I did.
Yes.
But it's just like they're gonna be like, "Oh, why'd you do that? It's so embarrassing." And it is a little bit. It's a little embarrassing, but also like it just makes everyone smile and kind of laugh. And it's just something you can do that isn't super overwhelming for you at home to like another thing I have to do. You know, one of the times I think I had Rosie, and she was younger during one of his deployments. I think the last one he was on, I had her color on the box. She was
Yes.
like driving me crazy because, they want to be a part of the process. And I'm like, color in it. Here, I'm writing a card to daddy for whatever reason. Just scribble in it. I don't care. And she wasn't writing then. So I just gave it to her with some colors. And I was like, have at it. I don't care what you do to the card. She colored on the front, inside, the back. Didn't matter. She colored
It
everywhere.
doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. They get that and they love that, And I think one time I found a really thin photo book I say photo book, and now I really sound old.
I was waiting for it. I was like, oh,
Oh god,
she's dating herself now.
a photo album. It was really thin, like think from like Walgreens. It was a little leather thing, and I just printed a bunch of pictures, which you can still do at Walgreens. And I just slid them in there, and I mailed them that. All kinds of pictures of us together, new pictures of the kids. It didn't matter what it was. I slid it in there, pictures of our dogs. And it
Oh,
was
Shelby.
very thin. It was very thin, so it was easy to carry around and keep. So I don't think care packages have to be huge. I will say if your service member spouse is asking for something specific, do try to make sure you stick that in there because they're really looking for that thing because they need it or they really, really, really want that thing to make them feel better. And
Right.
so sometimes it's kind of a bummer when you don't get those things if you're really hoping to see them in the next box or two. Um, but
That
even
definitely makes
cards,
sense.
yeah, even cards, guys. Like, I spent 6 months in Virginia in school when my husband and my daughter were in Okinawa, and I would just write a card and I would just throw it in the mail, which you can do from your house. You just throw it in your mailbox to put the flag up. I'm serious. Could be that easy. I would just write whatever. Doesn't matter. Just a card that says, I love you and I miss you, and sign your name and then throw it in the mailbox. Call it a day. Doesn't have to be something extravagant every time.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Let me ask you something though, because you have been deployed. Because I feel like something I struggled with whenever I would send care packages was I would have people tell me, like, well, just be careful how many photos you're sending, or, be careful of what you're sending because it's going to remind them of home and that's just going to make it worse for them. Like, what is your thought on that?
I've never experienced that. I mean, maybe for some people. Um, I'm not sure. We want to keep that connection with home. Most service members do. I've heard some unfortunate stories. Actually, one of the women that Chris used to work with had an unfortunate deployment in which she took her own life while she was on deployment away from her kids and her spouse. And so that was not a good um, thing, but it wasn't because they sent her pictures and she missed her kids. You know what I mean? There were some
Right.
other things going on there. So I don't know. I've never experienced that. Sometimes you want to feel like you're part of what's going on at home still, even though you're not, and you can't like fully be part of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody be upset because they got pictures, or they got a certain thing from home.
Yeah, that definitely makes
Yeah.
sense. And like I said, for me on the other side of it, you know, when Dustin was deployed, I was fortunate to have my best friend there. We had a really good group of friends. Obviously, coronavirus wasn't a thing, and we did so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I know for him personally, like he loved to see us doing stuff. And so I would send him pictures all the time. I would email him. I would give him like a synopsis of what we did for that week or whatever. If Ella had like, she was in karate at the time and I had cheer at the time and everything else. So I would send all of that stuff and tell him all of those things. And like you said, he was happy because he felt like he could be a part of that. We went to Disneyland while he was gone, which he was really thankful for that because Disneyland is not his place.
Yeah. I mean, do that stuff, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm glad you guys went and you had fun and I didn't have to deal with it."
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And that's exactly what he said. He's like, I am so glad you guys had a good time, but I am even more happy that I did not have to be there.
Yeah, we used to do that with the zoo. Well, I think that was more well, no, it was when he was deployed, but also when he was on the drill field, we used to do that. I used to take Rosie down to the zoo because I have active duty ID card, so San Diego Zoo is free for me, and then Rosie was under 3, so it was free for her, and we just buy lunch when we get down there, throw in a stroller, call it a day. We'd walk around the zoo for 3/4 of the day, and he's like,
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys do this, but it's not really like he would go with us, right? But it's just not his thing. I'm like a zoo fanatic, so when I go to the zoo, I'm like a crazy person, so I don't blame him.
I love it. I love
Uh,
it. But yeah, I mean, it's just things like that. I think that spouses, I guess, need to be more open about and talk about and understand like it's okay to do things for yourself. And, I feel like I had this conversation with someone earlier today. Like, as a military family, we knew having kids, there were things that either one of us or both of us, or, whatever the situation is, that we were going to miss out on. So
yeah,
it was about Ella's dance recital, actually. And it just so happens to fall on the same weekend of the air show here. Well, we knew as a military family, like if that happens and he has to work the air show, he can't be there. And
yeah,
yeah, it sucks, but it's something that, we knew going into it. And so we do our best. Okay, record whatever we can, buy the DVD or whatever. Not that
yeah.
he really wants to sit at a 5-hour recital anyway.
No.
um, but it's things like that I'm a big advocate in the fact that you still have to continue to live your life even when they're gone.
Yeah, for sure. And encourage them to like, and these days it's a lot easier, I think, for them to communicate back home. So, encourage them, take pictures and tell them like, hey, I want to see like, pictures. How are you and what's going on with you? Send us pictures of what you're doing so I can see you and the kids can see you, even if you don't have kids. Um, my cousin, her ex-husband now, they when they were married before they had kids, he deployed. And that's difficult too. I think that because I have kids, I'm a little preoccupied with them and my affection and my attention has somewhere to go. And when um, your spouse is deployed and it's just the two of you, I think it feels a little extra lonely. And we kind of went through that too because we had deployments before we had kids. And being home by yourself is a little lonely. You come home to no one, right? But like now I come
Yes.
home to kids, but when before we had kids, I would come home to my dog. Don't get me wrong, I love my dog. But my dog doesn't hug me back, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's difficult too to go through deployment when it's just the two of you and you don't have kids because you really get into a groove of all your own of just focusing on like what you need to get done at home and you don't have them there. And so there's like kind of a void.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I know even there's been times when Dustin has been deployed and Ella has gone home, for a month or two to spend time with my family. And I mean, I work as late as I possibly can. It's almost like I do everything I possibly can to avoid going home because I
yeah,
know it's going to be so lonely there.
yeah, yeah. I think that, when your spouse is deployed, having a good set of friends and having some type of social life and, spending more time with your family, like do those things. Don't be
Yes.
afraid to not do those things.
Yes.
Um, and tell your spouse about them. Why not? They're gonna 9 times out of 10, they're gonna appreciate that you're doing something and that you're getting out there and you're staying busy and all that kind of stuff. So um, yeah, I mean, those are just my experiences with things. I think we talked to like all kinds of different stuff about deployment today.
Right? We
Uh,
did. And I love it. Well, and you said talking about your spouse sending photos. Dustin has sent me so many amazing photos from
yeah.
deployments and stuff. And there was one of his deployments, he sent me, oh my gosh, just the most beautiful pictures of like the helo and the sunset. And I actually had them printed out onto like metal pictures,
Uh-huh.
so we could hang them in our house because they were so cool.
And I'm not gonna like lie to everybody and be like, we don't do anything but work while we're on deployment. Hey, honestly, there's some times where we have a good time, right? But and also make that a comfortable conversation for your spouse,
Yes.
that would be my
Yes.
recommendation. That's got to be a comfortable conversation with your spouse. So when there's something funny that they've gone through or whatever, it's their break for the day and encourage them to share that with you. One of like the things that sticks out in my mind, I was thinking about this earlier. I swear this will be the last story for the day. When we were in Kuwait, we stopped there. I was deployed on a ship, guys, for about 7 months. I think we got extended a month. Um, and so we were in Kuwait for 30 days, which got shortened, but that's a long story we won't get into. So we were in Kuwait for 30 days, and my girlfriend and I went to the chow hall at lunch, and um, we were reading the menu as we walked in. We were on an Air Force base, I think. And so it was their chow hall, which is leaps ahead of a Marine Corps chow hall
I've
anywhere you
heard.
go. So we walked in and she goes, "What's Noodles Jefferson?" And I was like, "Dude, what is Noodles Jefferson? Like, this is, they give it like this name to make it sound so fancy. And now I'm like curious, like, what is this?" And she looks at me and she's like, "How much you want to bet Noodles Jefferson is literally noodles with butter on it?" And I was like, "Get out of here. There's no way. Like, why wouldn't they just call it that then?" She's like, "I bet you." And we're like, "What is Noodles Jefferson?" Right? So we get up to the line. We're like, "Let me get some of that." Yep, buttered noodles. But
That fancy Noodles Jefferson, okay?
that fancy noodles Jefferson, guys, like that's, man. But those moments happen, and like you, if I were to call back and tell my husband that story while we were deployed, he'd have been like, "I don't understand it," like he
Right.
gets it because he's been there, but like most people be like, what I don't understand. But like it's just one of the things that happens while you're gone. You're like, oh man, and it's those kind of things that stick with you. So I would definitely say encourage your spouse to have those conversations with you and talk to you about that stuff, because those are some of the things that stick with a service member. And for you as a couple to kind of move through deployment, you got to share those things with each other and be able to laugh and talk about them from both sides.
Yeah,
It's so important.
absolutely. One of my most favorite stories is from Dustin's last deployment. He had to go to the embassy in Jordan, and he called me at the end of the day, and he was like, "I had to throw my shoes away." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Ew.
And he's like, "It was so hot there that the bottom of my shoes literally melted off of my shoe, and I walked out of them."
That's hilarious.
It was so funny. I mean, I'm laughing just as hard now as I did whenever he told me. And of course, he's like, "I literally just started walking and they just stayed right there." And so I love to hear stories about that. And just funny things like that, the good and the bad and everything else. So like you said, definitely have those conversations with your spouse, because yes, you guys are working hard, of course, but I know it's not all work. And I mean, he went to the embassy for work, but he still had something really funny happen to him while he was there.
Yeah. Yep. And that stuff does happen, no matter how small or insignificant it is. Those things happen because you got to break that seriousness a little bit while you're out there, no matter where you're
Absolutely.
deployed to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming again today and listening to us. And we will be back in 2 weeks. Be sure to subscribe to whatever podcast listening platform you use, and you'll never miss an episode.